YouTube, this is Rap from Rap's Garage Shop. I wanted to do a video on shovel heads on how to eliminate the engine oil going into the primary. You don't want all that clutch material and anything else that's in there going into the engine, and that's exactly what happens. That's probably the biggest reason why Harley got away from it. Obviously, they don't do that with the Evos or anything newer. The shovel heads were the only bikes they ever did this with, and they realized their mistakes, so they got away from it. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. If you don't do that right now, the video will stop automatically. You can see up in my color code here, anything that's in pink is plugged off. Anything in green is the vent. The orange is feed oil and the yellow is return oil. The way you go about this is on the inner primary, you have 3 taps. You have one tap that's the oil coming in that lubes the chain. You have another tap that's down low, and that's the return back into the engine. And you have this vent. Now this vent's tied in with a T to the oil tank and then over to the motor, and that puts everything at the same pressure. And then a different spot on the motor on the case, it vents it to atmosphere. You have to plug the return off and you have to plug the oiler off, and that eliminates those. Now this vent, you might want to hook to a piece of tube that kind of hooks around, because it does still need to be vented. If you don't vent this at all, when it gets hot, it'll push oil out of the gaskets or push oil anywhere it can. So you have to have an atmospheric vent. It doesn't have to be tied into the T, just go to atmosphere. Let's go over to this part right here. This section's actually on the engine and what it looks like. This is the oil pump here. Off the side of the oil pump right here, there's a pressurized port that sends oil over to the primary, and that's how it gets its oil. You have to take that hose off of here and put a plug in there. Again, it's pink, anything pink that gets plugged. This is oil from the oil tank that goes into the pump. You have one side that pressurizes the oil, and that takes this feed oil from the tank, pressurizes it, and pushes it through the motor. This port here comes off of the scavenging pump, scavenges oil out of the bottom of the motor, puts it up in here, and returns it to the oil tank. If your bike doesn't have an oil filter, you should send this to the oil filter. It'll go through the oil filter and back to the tank. This section of the engine, there's the oil return from the primary. So after it comes out of the primary, it pushes the oil back into this port on the motor. You have to block that off. You find that hose and block that off. Now you also have a vent. This is that motor vent up to the oil tank, and this is the one that got teed in and also went to the vent on the primary. You connect the vent hose on the oil tank to this port here. And the last one you have over here is you have a vent right here on the engine, and that comes down and vents out to atmosphere. So you want to make sure that the engine's vented to atmosphere. So what that ultimately all looks like when you're done is you have oil off the bottom of the tank that feeds the inlet of the pump, goes through the engine, comes out of the engine here, it's in yellow, goes through an oil filter, and then back to the oil tank. You take the one vent and you tie it to the oil tank, and that puts the oil tank and the engine at the same pressure, and then the vent here goes to atmosphere. So this right here is the pressurized port that sends oil over to the primary to oil your primary chain. This one up top's the vent, and that puts the engine and the oil tank at the same pressure. You can see that one heads up, and then it's right there, and you can see right here this hose, that is the vent to atmosphere. It comes off of a port down here on the bottom of the motor, and right there you can see it goes to one of those filters to vent to atmosphere. Also, I do on this bike, it did come with an oil filter. This one here is the hose that supplies oil to the engine from the oil tank, and this is the return. But this return comes over here to that oil filter, and then from that oil filter it goes into the top of the oil tank. After you've done all this work, you have to remember to put oil into the primary, and you'll need a new primary gasket since it'll all be apart. In all the bikes I've owned for primary oil, I've always used this Mobil 1 full synthetic 10W40. This oil doesn't have friction modifiers, so you don't have to worry about your clutches slipping. And the way I fill it is I put it on the kickstand, and then I fill the primary with oil until it just touches the bottom of the clutch basket, and that's the right oil level. Again, please don't forget to like and subscribe. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments. I'll be sure to help you out. Thanks for watching.